It's time for another monthly webinar from your friends at CompanyCam, and I'm super excited for our guest today. My friend Jason Wilmot is joining us. I got to read his bio. He's done and is doing a lot of things. I want to give him credit for all his awesome work. He is the founder of Hactics with Growth Marketing, which, of course, today is about digital marketing hacks for contractors. So it all fits. He is the founder of Trilogy, a 24/7 AI receptionist and appointment booking agent. And guess what? He is part of the team here at CompanyCam behind all those ads you see when you're scrolling on your phone and you see those in the social media feeds. So he is a man of many talents. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. So I'm super excited to have Jason joining us today on teaching us how to scale our reach. That is for digital marketing hacks for all you contractors out there. And I was just commenting to Jason, I know we probably have a bevy of people that have different levels of experience and education and knowledge about digital marketing for their business, for their contracting business. So I'm excited for Jason to maybe fill in the gaps for people from A to Z. And we'll kind of get started. What we always do, number one, is you notice my shirt. It's the Good Contractor Podcast, which is powered by CompanyCam. Before we get started, if you want to give it a listen, it's on YouTube or everywhere you get your podcasts. I host it with CompanyCam CEO Luke Hansen, and we tell stories about contractors. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're not even trying to sell you CompanyCam. We are telling you the real life stories of contractors and what makes it so damn exciting to be in contracting. We've had some amazing stories. We just kicked off season 2 with our friend Kevin Choquette from Raven Builders, and we've got several more to come. So check that out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast, the Good Contractor Podcast. Next, the chat feature. We want to make sure it's working for everybody. So in the chat, go ahead and make sure it says to everyone, and then drop where you're coming in from. Are you coming in from Chicago or Nebraska or California? Tell us if you're coming in from another country outside the United States. It's always fun to see where everyone's coming in from. We got Arizona, New Jersey, Alabama, Connecticut, Washington. Wow. Jason, we got a big group here.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Look at
Manitoba,
that.
Canada. All right.
Yeah. So make sure that your chat is on. I love seeing people drop in. And yeah, this is awesome. Look at this. Canada, Oregon, Kearney, Nebraska, not too
There we
far
go.
from,
Shout out
yeah,
to Carney.
that's right. British Columbia. Very, very cool. All right. Make sure it's to everyone. When you drop a question, I will do my best to get to it as they come. If not, we'll get them at the end. I always try my best to get to everybody's questions. If I miss you, my apologies, but we will do our best. And secondly, we will have this up on YouTube. So if you missed it, you're like, oh, I got to jump. We will have it up on YouTube after this is all over. But let's go ahead and get started. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
This is so awesome to have you, man. Let's just start at the very beginning. When it comes to digital marketing for contractors, I guess talk about kind of the basics. If somebody was starting from scratch and they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know what tools I need. Like, what should I be doing? How would you kind of start that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of this. And what I want to say, across the board is like you said, there's a bevy of folks probably in here across the board. I would say one of the most important things, sorry for speaking to those folks who already know this, but have your own website. If you don't have your website, you need to have your own website. The reason why you have to have your own website is think of it as your digital presence. You're going to rank higher on Google. You are going to have an ecosystem that you control rather than like just being on Facebook or something like that. So it's important to have this own digital footing on that aspect because with a website, which we're going to get into this, you can attach data and you can attach a lot of different tracking elements and a lot of cool things. And so happy to dive into every specific element of that. But as far as your website is concerned, we'll talk about paid media and we'll talk about paid ads and stuff like that. But you need to think of your website as a 24/7 machine to go get sales for you. And we can kind of dive more into that. But your website is a powerful thing where we can put pixels, where we can retarget people if they've been to your website. We can chase them down. You've all heard of that. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But I don't want you to think of your website as like a digital sort of. Uh, I don't want you to think of it as your website is just some standalone thing that you have to have. It is a machine that can drive business for you. It can gather analytics. It can retarget people. And so happy to get into any of those specifics with you.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive in to, I guess, some things. If we were talking about a website and we were talking about, okay, um, can we? I guess do we should we start with things like Google Analytics and looking at building your website out with the different tools involved, or do you want to focus more on like the type of content that lives on your website? Like, where would you rather start?
Well, let's just start with tracking because I think when I say tracking, what everybody here should hear is money, because data correlates very well with money. And so, what there are some certain elements that you want to track on your website. There are tools like Google Analytics, which are 100% free to install, kind of a pain in the butt to actually figure out and do. But when I talk about tracking, I want you guys to be thinking about how do I make money from my website? So there's a couple different things that we could be tracking. One is form submits. Who's submitting a form on your website? Are they redirected to a page that says thank you? That thank you page really isn't that big to a customer, but it tells you, the business owner, that, hey, these people actually navigated to this site. There was a thank you piece involved. And then that allows you to kind of do a little bit of analytics. If people are calling you from your website, if people are engaging with you through a chat widget, I like to think of the tracking elements as sort of endpoints. And again, what is making you money? Phone calls are making you money, chat widgets are making you money, as well as form submits are making you money. So we can dive into more tracking and stuff like that as this goes along. We could probably spend an hour talking on tracking, but I don't want to
Yeah.
lose the overall piece of this. Um, we can also sort of, I also want to put out this frame that and it sounds harsh, but this is coming from a marketer. Nobody cares about your business. And I think that's very important going into any discussion about marketing. People only care about themselves. So I
Mhm.
think if you use that as a guiding principle in a lot of your website and a lot of your own marketing materials, what we're trying to do is establish trust and build that over time. And I've seen roofers do this really well. They'll pull out their phone on top of a roof and sort of educate customers on this is what I'm looking at, this is what's wrong, this is what we're fixing. Yes, it's just sort of this drip that you want to be continually in front of all of these individuals, but again, I want to emphasize everyone only cares about themselves. All right, let's keep that like loose.
Yeah.
Sorry, hopefully my kids aren't listening. But to the whole point, yeah, people care about themselves. And if you can position your business as the solution that they are looking for, then that is good marketing.
Yeah. Does I guess there's some components of this where it's like there is you're looking to solve a problem. So then you start thinking, okay, well, if they only care about themselves and their problem getting fixed, that's why they've come here. So they've landed on my website, whether they've come in from social, whether they've come in just through traditional SEO, whether they've just done, Google My Business, like whatever it is. Uh, let's stay with that and talk about the type of content. If you are a contractor, if Jason Wilmot, boom, starts contracting business tomorrow, what kind of content are you creating to tackle the problem of my customers only care about themselves?
Hmm.
And going on that theory, what are the things that I'm doing to get form submissions, to generate leads, to be able to, because I think there's also the component you're probably going to get into, which is beyond just lead generation, there's returning customers, there's helping other, like, so if you were doing a content plan for any of these contractors or for yourself, and you hypothetically start a business tomorrow, what does Jason suggest?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So again, I think it comes back to what is the customer looking for. But one of the things that we also need to keep in mind is it's not going to do you any benefits to like post some educational content once a month. There needs to be frequency. And so this needs to be sort of a muscle in your brain where whether you want to do it or you don't want to do it, you need to put out content. You need to put something out there. And listen, not everything you put out needs to be this awesome thing. But as people scroll by on their phones and they see you, that is worth money. People are paying money on Facebook ads and on Google ads. They're paying for that impression. So if you can be out there putting out organic content, it costs you nothing other than your time and energy, which let's be honest, that is limited as well. But so I think There's educational content that you can be doing, and it depends on probably the seasonality of things here, right? In Nebraska, there's not a lot of roofs that have been going on in the last 2 months. And so maybe the messaging has kind of shifted more towards home exteriors or windows or these other points that people are just, you're trying to provide people, again, you're trying to build trust. It all comes down to that. So it's just showing you as the expert. But I think, rather than taking a picture, what I've seen really well, done really well, is people putting this on, or just like I said, getting up on a roof, filming yourself for 10 to 15 seconds, and then, sort of walking them through what you're looking at, what's wrong with this roof, how could somebody, protect themselves from this. So I think there's all of that. I know this is more about the marketing plan, but another thing that I want to say is don't shy away from putting this on your personal profile on Facebook.
Mm.
And I know there's a lot of other ad platforms out there, but when it comes to people with money who have roofs, most of the time you're going to be uh, talking to Facebook because that's where a lot of your buyers are going to be. So, your company page on Facebook is probably very limited in reach. Um, Facebook tends to throttle the views of anything that's being posted to a company page. So don't be afraid to put this on your personal stories, on your personal feed, because that's going to greatly improve your reach. So back to sort of like the marketing strategy. I think one of the things is, go into your brain and think like, what is the thing that people find value? How can I help them? How can I build them? How can I build their trust? It's not going to be the same for everybody, but I tell you what, like over time, and we'll get into this, what we're trying to do is build up something called demand generation. Demand generation is a little bit different than lead generation, but I want you guys to think about it this way. People are out there right now on Google searching for roof repairs near me, best contractor near me, whatever, right? And those clicks are going to cost a lot of money. What would be ideal for any roofing business that's listening to this is that you have built up enough demand over time by posting, by continuing to give value so that when somebody is ready for that roof, they don't go to contractor near me or best roofing near me. They already know that you are the best roofer out there because they've seen your content over and over and over again. So, again, this is the long play. I cannot say if you put a video up on your personal feed, you're going to get leads left and right. Like this is an investment into growing your brand. And I think the people who think about it that way, while the results may be a little bit more long tail, ultimately that's going to be the best game plan for your marketing strategy.
And so if you're somebody, I think this is really good, especially about the putting stuff in your personal page and connecting it. Because I always say, even when you sit and talk to people who are really, really good at SEO and they have that expertise, one of the things they constantly talk about is the connection from this to this to this to this to this to
Yeah.
this, and that helps that. Um, and so whether somebody was in HVAC or they were in roofing or they're doing plumbing, and they say, okay, my company page is getting throttled on this social media, I'm going to post to personal. If you were advising them, somebody doing this for the first time, would you say, whether it's Facebook or anything else, would you say sharing the content from the company page on the personal page or running two separate content streams with the same stuff? Like, what do you feel like gets the most
Yeah.
bang
Well,
for the buck? And I just thought I'd bring that one up
I
because I'm
mean,
sure that may come up.
that's a great question. Bang for the buck would be just sharing from your company page, right?
Yeah.
Like recycling your content as much as possible. And the same goes for like Instagram as well. I'm a big fan of TikTok. If you have been on TikTok and you have seen ads from CompanyCam, thank you. Um, Now the thing though about TikTok is that's not going to really necessarily reach your local demographic. And so if you're thinking business right here, Facebook is really a good way to go. Facebook and Instagram, obviously like YouTube, and the more that you can grow your digital presence, it's going to be effective. Things like putting photos into your Google My Business page is going to help you as well. So think kind of locally first, I think, with some of these platforms rather than like, oh, we need a TikTok presence or something like that. Good chances are if you make a TikTok video, there's going to be a lot of people elsewhere that might like your content, but you won't necessarily be reaching the people in your city.
How much does everybody wants to know the $1 million question of how much should I be utilizing AI for my content? How much is AI spotted right away as being like, oh, don't do that? How much could it hinder you? How can it help you? If you were giving advice on content creation and how much to utilize AI, Jason Wilmot would say,
I'm gonna say yes,
okay.
which is not like a good answer. The answer is yes, test it, right? I think everything comes down to test. Again, the sort of the mentality that we're bringing into this is demand generation. What can I just do to stay in front of people? Now, if it looks fake and it looks dumb, like that's on you for posting that. Um, so I don't think like posting for the sake of posting is necessarily a good thing. When it comes to AI, obviously like I'm big on AI, but we use it more on the service side rather than like on the social media side. Where I think AI really can come into some of this content plan is if you have photos, you can put backgrounds on it. If you want to make like text-based posts, like they're good with that. But as far as like kind of genning up video or something like that and expecting results, I don't think you're going to have a ton of results when it comes to just AI. What I don't want to be, uh, I don't want my followers to become numb to something. And
Mm,
if AI seems a little inauthentic, then yeah, there's that. And I think it comes down to this. Um, when it comes to social media, people like faces. People like the personality of it. And while AI obviously is going to do incredible things and probably revolutionize all of these spaces, I don't really think that it can replicate the trust that you can build by just getting on there with your own face.
yeah. And one of the things you brought up earlier that I think is such a good point is thinking about yourself. What would you want? You were talking about like within your content, within your website, when you're saying, what value am I going to provide? What do I want to provide? All that. I always say that a lot of times we get into the businesses that we're in and we forget that like, well, I have a house, I rent, I have this, I have these needs. And we forget like, well, what would I want? If I was picking up the phone to call me, what would I want me to say to me? Like, and I think that's one of the things is because we get thought as a business owner and we forget that we are also a consumer, a customer. And so I think it was such good advice when you said, think about everything that you are doing as what would I want as a customer first, then think about as a business. And if that starts to shape the content you create, the messaging you want to put on your website, the things that you want to tell people, to me, it's back to that. I want to see a face. I want trust. I want real. I want to know. And it's like, it's so funny how that sounds so simple, but I've been in different spots and in completely different industries where it's like, you came into this as a user, as a fan, as a consumer, as a whatever. And now you're a business owner and you've forgotten what it's like to be the customer. Put yourself back in those shoes. Now speak from that place. And it's a lot easier to kind of connect the dots with your customers when you think like a customer.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, it's not easy. It's hard. Like our
Yeah.
number one gut like reflex when it comes to posting is selling, right? How do I sell?
Yeah.
Nobody really likes to be sold though, if we think about it. Like you want to build that trust and the sales will come. So listen, it is easy for me to say like this is what you should do. But that's why my answer earlier was like yes, as far as like the AI. The answer is yes to whatever you're thinking right now. Just do it. And if it flops, who cares? Right? Nobody's going to remember it, but just do it and get into yeah, get into this phase of trying to do something. And I think everybody in here it gets that because we're all entrepreneurs here. And we know that something doesn't have to be 100% perfect to get it out there, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a marketing plan, okay, just post. And or ask, this is a two-way street. Ask the people what they want to learn about. Let them comment and let them sort of drive what you need to be putting out next. But obviously, I think it's good to demonstrate your work. Like not everything has to be a video or educational. I think you can, do before and after pictures. I think you can show somebody where something was and now what it is. That's a powerful transformation. That's a powerful piece of content that you can use. But yeah, again, not saying that it's easy, but just do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Just try it. Just
yeah,
see what happens.
yeah.
Um, this is awesome. If you guys have questions, don't forget you can drop them in the chat. Make sure that the two is selected for everyone. Otherwise, we won't all see it. and we will try to get to your questions as they come in, or at latest when we're all finished up here. Okay, so we're talking about testing, we're talking about growing, we're talking about just do it, just see what happens. If it doesn't work, try something else. What are KPIs you're looking at? What are things when you are testing to say, oh, this is working? Because not always is it about, oh, I instantly got business because I tried. Like, there are some things that are slow, measurable steps. Is it getting people to submit those forms? Is it getting a phone call, making the phone ring? Is it, activity from a chat widget standpoint? Is it just strictly, business appointments booked and
Yeah.
closing deals? Like, what do you measure?
I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it comes down. Your KPIs initially are those things that we talked about earlier. How many form submits, how many phone calls, how many chat widget chats, like how many messages that you're getting. So those are the KPIs. But I think like as far as marketing KPIs, rather than digging into the data, it's like KPI, did I post today? Right? Knock that
Mm,
one off first. Did I
yeah.
post, or is it 3 times a week or 2 times a week or whatever? Like the number one KPI for marketing is just do it and get it out there. And then, sort of, if you're looking at this, you're looking for, let's just say we're not worried about the website at all right now. When you're looking at your posts, you should be looking at your reach and your engagement. Now, here's what you want to do you want to get people to comment because what you're trying to do is tell that algorithm. And again, I'm sort of thinking Facebook and Instagram here. You're wanting to tell that algorithm, hey, there's a conversation going on in this thread. More people want to see it. So you're trying to kind of like, I'm not saying bait people into a conversation, but if you look at like really successful videos on even things like TikTok or Facebook or whatnot, like they're all going to have a lot of comments. And I'm not saying you have to drive controversy into this. But what you can do is think of a way to engage people. Like, what are your thoughts? Throw them down below in the comments. What are you struggling with? Because what that's going to do is Facebook is going to see like, hey, there's a conversation going on here. We think that we should put it in front of this person and this person and this person. Now, I know it's a pain in the butt to get back to all of those comments, but it will help to reply to all of those as well because again, that's going to feed the algorithm that something interesting is going on here. So those are sort of your initial KPIs and when you figure out like what content is reaching the most people, which content is generating a lot of comments and impressions, then that is a good indicator to you as the marketer or as you wearing the marketing hat, that hey, this sort of content sort of resonates with people. Um, it's not and sorry, it's not your motivational Monday, images that you're
Yeah.
using every single Monday. Like it's stuff that I think people want to engage in. So, and again, I'm not throwing stones at anybody. If people are putting that out there, good for you that you're doing it. But mix it up. Try a few things and see what generates those comments. Now, all of that needs to eventually translate over into traffic to your
Right.
website. I want to spend a minute here talking about SEO. I've lived in the land of SEO for a very long time. And one of the things that, no SEO person selling you will tell you is the number one way to grow your SEO is people on your website. That's have like this web agency build you out the most SEO optimized website on the planet. But if nobody comes to your website, that's not going to rank higher. Google wants to give people the thing that they're looking for. And so
Mhm.
the way that your SEO is going to grow over time, there's a lot of obviously like you want an SEO optimized website because when people do come to your website, then that's going to feed the beast even more. But what we want to do is grow your SEO by just getting people to your website and having them spend time on your website. Now, there's a lot of like ancillary things that you can do to that is like making sure that you have a Google My Business account, making sure that your Facebook page links to your website. And we do want things to be optimized for people who are searching. And we can kind of get into that. That's in the weeds, but sort of tying the whole marketing plan into this, like your SEO should rise if people are coming to your website, and that's sort of the main focus of this marketing. Is yeah, we want to get people to our website and give them something where they can consume and give them something where they can opt in and spend some time.
Good stuff. We do have some questions coming in. First one's from Allison. She says, "What do you think about adding more like people info, like employee spotlight? So personal details about the team, like, hey, Susie volunteers at the animal shelter. Is that effective content? Is that something that you would file under? Yeah, this is something great to have on your website."
Yeah. Great question. I think again, my answer, not to be like curt or short or anything, is like, yeah, try it. I mean, if people
Right.
engage with that kind of stuff, do it. And I think, employees being on there and on your socials, it's a good way to humanize your business and understand that you're dealing with people here. And like everybody gets, well, I shouldn't say everybody gets that, but our economy is built on the backs of business owners and
Right.
people exchanging value. And I think it's a great to be able to highlight that. So if you've got team members out there that are doing unique things, yeah, let them go at it. But again, look at your numbers. If it sort of flops, hey, it doesn't mean it's bad. Maybe just try it again in a different way. But it's just sort of this experiment. And I think one of the things that I've just learned about being in marketing for a long time is everything changes. Everything changes.
Sure. Yeah.
So you don't have to jump on the bandwagon of doing TikTok dances for your business, right? But yeah, if you want to highlight an employee or they've got something unique to bring and humanize your business and connect with that on that like deeper level with people, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Plus, I always say people in different spots I've been at, it's like whether you were doing TV and radio advertising 30 years ago or you're doing social media, marketing now, you've never really had your hands on the levers of I should say, the highway that you're driving on, so to speak. Like, so to Jason's point, it's important to test because it will change without you knowing sometimes. So it's important to see what works. Nafi asks, and it's kind of a broad question: how do you
Yeah.
generate leads from content? Obviously, that's broad, but maybe if somebody was writing a blog on their website, or how does that translate? I guess when you think about content you'd put on a contracting website, whether you are doing roofing or HVAC or plumbing or restoration or whatever, uh, when you're thinking about generating leads from content, and I can talk about content, leading the content team here at CompanyCam, but I'd rather have Jason talk about it because I do think that there's so many ideas about what provides value and how does that kind of fit in when if you were putting together a plan for a company and you said, all right, now let's get down to the content that's on your website or the content's on your social. Here's how this translates to generating leads. Like how do you kind of add those things together to make it all
Yeah,
compute for
that's a
folks?
good question. So we can probably dive in a little bit more on like the content on your website. But to go back to the social point, like you don't have to drop a CTA or a call to action in every single post, but
Mm-hmm.
it works when you do. So like, hey, if you like this video, follow for more, right? That's a light ask. If you have questions or if you're needing, somebody to come look at your house, go ahead and, click the button below, right? You want to give people the ability to you want to tell people what to do. And I'm not saying this, I'm saying this purely as a marketing, but people, you kind of have to assume people are dumb and they need to be told what to do, right? Um, and just sort of as a general principle. So you as this marketer, this business owner, you need to tell the folks, hey, if you need this, if you need help, then go to my website. And you want to direct people that way. Now, you don't always have to kind of give that hard CTA in everything that you do, because again, maybe we don't want to be selling in every single post, but that's a great way to push people who need it now to your website. So again, uh, I'm not going to say that you're going to generate a ton of leads off of social posts because let's put ourselves in their situation. They're on the toilet, they're in their car, they're sitting down on their phone, right? They just come across, they're browsing. Not everybody who is looking at your content needs your services right now, but there is going to come a time that they do. So, and let me kind of foreshadow what we can talk about here in a bit. But one of the best parts about social media and posting is it's free. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can figure out what resonates with people and the type of posts that's resonate with people, once you've determined that, that is where the power of paid ads come into play. Because all of a sudden, if you figured out, okay, this post really resonates with people, let's put some money behind this to target the people who are actually looking for my services. So it's a good way to like sort of flesh out what sort of material works. And then when you determine that, that's when you can turn on the power of paid ads. So that was more on the social side. I know kind of skipped over the on the website, the content side. Um, can you rein me in, John, on what we want to talk
No,
about on the website?
no, this is great. I think, and this comes with a good question. There was another question here that I wanted to get to, and these kind of tie together. But Jamie was asking, like, are blogs on the way out, or are they something that's still valuable? I guess the way to bring this to the website, if you were looking at what kind of content that you said, okay, bare minimum, foundation of the house, to use some building terms, what do I have to have on this brand new website that I've just created from scratch for my contracting business? Because I'm either brand new or I haven't ever created one and now I need to make it, or you're redoing a website. You said,
Yeah.
so if you were looking at that, like what are your bare kind of foundational content pillars that you're like, I know I've got to have that? And then what are some nice to haves maybe?
All right. Yeah. So let's dive into some specific things, maybe even before content. So there's this, and everything I'm about to say is free. So obviously, Google My Business, you want that out there. There's another thing called Google Search Console, which is basically Google's way of scraping your website. And scraping means they're gonna come crawl your website to see what pages that you have out there. And this is where the SEO piece really comes involved. But if you're trying to SEO optimize your website and you're not feeding that information to Google, well, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So there's a couple like core elements that you need. And then obviously you want Google Analytics on there. That's free. That's going to tell you what pages are performing best. It's going to say like which yeah, how long are people staying on all of these pages? So there's some core elements that we want. But let's say that those are in place. Then what do we do? So let's use Lincoln, Nebraska as an example here. If you have commercial roofing services in Lincoln, Nebraska, there's a couple things that you would want on a page that's dedicated for that. Remember, your SEO is going to grow if people are on your page. That's the main way that it's going to grow. But there's a few cheat codes out there. So in your slug, let's just say it's johnsroofingcompany.com. What we would want to do after that slug is have a slug that says commercial dash roofing dash Lincoln, Nebraska. Because what that's going to tell Google is when people are searching for commercial roofing, Lincoln, Nebraska, it wants to go to these websites, crawl what's out there. Now, that's like part one of this. You would also want the title of that page in SEO world. It's called your H1. You would also want to say commercial roofing, Lincoln, Nebraska. When you have images on that page, don't just upload any images and keep the file name the same. Make it so that you rename the file commercial roofing Lincoln, Nebraska. There's something else that's called an alt tag, which is basically sort of for blind people navigating the internet. You can also put commercial roofing Lincoln, Nebraska in that. And then what you want to do is have a page with enough content on there that is calling out these keywords over and over and over again. So again, you want to make that page long enough where people are just spending time. So maybe you want to put a video on that page, and so on and so forth. So take that example of commercial roofing, apply it to residential roofing, apply it to windows and siding or plumbing or whatever. And so, no, I don't think blogs are on their way out per se. I don't sit around and read blogs anymore. But you know who does? Google. So if Google is reading the blogs, what it wants to do, again, it wants to give that customer what they are looking for. And so the more that you spend your time sort of optimizing those pages, it is going to give you some long tail benefits. Now, is that going to be true 2 years from now? Who knows, right? Who
Right.
knows? Who knows?
For now, at this moment of this
Correct.
webinar.
For
Yeah,
now, yes.
right.
Yes.
A couple of questions on just features and things to use. Amber asked, is hashtagging on Facebook still a thing at all? I know those change all the time. And then I think Donna asked, thoughts on Linktree and kind of the whole link in bio thing. I guess hashtags, link in bio, tools like that. Are they still effective? Are they things that you suggest for people to do or not, or kind of, or is it a test it, see if it works type thing?
I think it's sort of that. Like, I don't know if hashtags, I know I'm supposed to be the expert here. I don't know if hashtags work on Facebook like they used to. I'm assuming they do. I'm also thinking of the aesthetics of like not a ton of people do it. Not to say that you can't do it, but like hashtags in general are a good idea to be using. Do you want to fill your post up with like 30 different hashtags? Probably
Yeah.
not. But again, it's sort of it's that SEO thing. It's telling the algorithm or the platform what you're posting about. So it can help. But I'm not going to say that's going to be a make or break point for your business. It's like, oh, I forgot to add the hashtag. This isn't going to go anywhere. Yeah, try it.
Right.
Let's talk to Linktree though, real fast. So Linktree is an interesting concept. So I'm assuming like here's your personal post, here's your website. Linktree is sort of the thing that sits in between them. Now, Linktree is not necessarily a bad thing to have because you can put like retargeting pixels on all of that. So people who click to your Linktree but don't click to your website, they could be retargeted. I like the idea of Linktree because it gives people the opportunity to kind of self-select from that. But if we're speaking SEO and we're speaking like business, I want people on my website.
Yeah.
The reason why I want them on my website is I want to pixel them and I want to retarget them and I want to stay in front of those people. And so if all of my time, money, and energy is sending somebody to my link tree rather than my website, I might be doing a disservice if my link tree isn't optimized for that.
Interesting. We got a few content questions,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get to those in a second. But one, we've had two now asking about this. I know that Donna, or I'm sorry, we've had one from. Sorry, we got a lot of questions today. This is fantastic. Bridget had asked about this, which is about LinkedIn. And then Teresa and Britt were saying we don't use Facebook posts because we are a B2B business, so our clients are
Yeah.
primarily municipalities. So we focus on LinkedIn. Kind of Jason's general thoughts about the B2B side, but also just generally about LinkedIn and what kind of tool that is for contractors to use depending on their situation.
Yeah. Good question. LinkedIn, several thoughts on LinkedIn. Again, I think if you're going B2B, it does make sense to be on things like Facebook. Sorry, on things like LinkedIn. I also think TikTok and YouTube are a terrific spot to go for B2B. Now, obviously, TikTok is a different beast. It's all about the hook, it's all about the face, and it's all about like getting somebody to watch. But the idea behind TikTok, it has an incredible organic reach that you will not find on any other platform. So it's a great spot to be hitting that B2B thing. And remember, like if it's like a local B2B play, maybe that's not the best strategy. But if it's sort of a nationwide B2B play, those are great platforms to be on. And I think LinkedIn is a great spot too. I think LinkedIn, though, we have to keep in mind everybody's getting pitched left and right on LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
so I think one of the best ways to grow on LinkedIn is by using tools that you can auto connect to people, but not pitching them out of the gate, right? I think the play on LinkedIn is getting somebody to have like a tiny dialogue so that when they log back onto LinkedIn the next day, they're going to start seeing your content on there. It's sort of a long play. I mean, I don't know how many LinkedIn people are on here, but yeah, I mean, you go to your inbox any day, it's some new connection pitching you on something, and like people get tired of that. People don't want that. And so it's like, how do you stand out? Okay, I'm not going to pitch you. Maybe it's a
Right.
question, maybe it's something where you're directing them to like a channel of yours. So, um, yeah, I would say use automation on LinkedIn because that works to connect with people. But as far as like, yeah, the auto connect, hey, name, let me pitch you, that doesn't work. And if they delete that message, great, you have a contact that's no longer going to see anything. LinkedIn plays very, very well with if you are commenting on the people that they're following. It's a good spot to do that. So I'm not a LinkedIn pro by any means. Um, I'm not, I wouldn't even say I'm like a content pro. What I'm a pro at is looking at numbers and understanding what content is working and then spending into that success. So
Yeah, he's not giving himself enough credit. I think Jason is a content pro. There is a question about content that we can both answer. And somebody would say, Lauren asked, would you say blogs are better for answering questions and addressing pain points? Let me talk about it as the content marketing lead for CompanyCam, and then I'll let Jason dive in because he is a content pro and he has great thoughts on this. I always look at it as the same way that Jason says about testing, whether I've been covering sports and I was in different places before CompanyCam, or we're talking about contracting businesses or B2B or B2C or whatever it is, I always say this. Number one, testing is huge, obviously, and that's really going to lead you to what works for you in your market. But I always say if you're going to write blogs that have the best hit rate, to me, it goes back to what Jason was saying about what would you want as a customer? And what is Google actually looking at? If Google's reading it and they're actually going after looking at it, so is that the top 5 things you should do as a homeowner? Maybe it's something about creating value for your customer that's not selling them on a new roof. Maybe it's just saying, here's things to look for if you're going to do blank at this time of the year. Or maybe it's, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Sometimes just giving value that isn't directly a sell is such a good way, both from a Google standpoint. It helps with people what you're searching. Now you got to be doing all those things that Jason's talking about. You got to make sure that the page is optimized so that you have things like an H1 and the alt tags and everything in there is good. But to me, creating valuable content that people are out there searching for, if you can look at things and go, what are people searching for in my market when it comes to plumbing? What are they searching for when it comes to HVAC? What are they searching for? And I always say this, my mantra has always been, no matter how much the levers have changed with the different algorithms and the different social mediums, valuable content has always been valuable content. And somewhere, even if it helps one person, that could turn into something. So if you're out looking for stuff and you're like, could I create value without selling? Just create value for a potential customer in my market. Whether that is, here's the things to do in the winter to make sure you winterize your sprinkler system. Here are the things that I would do. Like, to me, it's like that's just such a hitting multiple things. You're going to hit probably great things that Google's looking for. Customers are going to appreciate it. Even if you didn't sell them today, maybe they come back tomorrow. Maybe they tell their neighbor, hey, I read this here. This is a really good tip. Have you ever tried this? To me, just creating valuable content that you would want as a customer, I think is first and foremost, and then test it and see what works. But I'll defer to Jason. That's my
Yeah.
long-winded content spiel. But
I,
yeah.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. I think one of the things that I would add is it doesn't need to be like blogs versus social. It can be both, right? If you feel good about writing a blog and you're addressing all of these FAQs, guess what? Each of these FAQs could be a short 20, 30-second video, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so don't think too hard on this. And don't like I'm going to say use AI here. I'm a big fan of having AI write your blogs. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, it's not going to be, you need to like have a good prompt so that it's an SEO optimized blog and you like it in the voice that you have it. But taking a few minutes to generate a blog and throwing it up on your website versus you sitting there thinking about for an hour of like, oh, what should I write about? What should I type about? Just go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, give me 5 blog ideas that we could write about to X, right? And then you're going to have a couple of those. And then if you have a blog or two that's generated from that, then what you're going to do perhaps is, yeah, create some video content off of that. Again, I will say this. You can put out as many blogs as you want on your website, but if nobody is coming to read them, it's not going to do you any good. So it's a part of the whole, and it's a very important part of the whole, but it is not the end all be all, nor is just the marketing. Like all of these things, unfortunately, it's a lot of
Yep.
elements that work together.
Correct.
But, you know, like AI has made it much easier to kind of handle this. And so use the tools where you can. If ChatGPT is $20 a month, is $20 a month worth of your time to build out these blogs? To my mind, it's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. So,
Yeah. Yeah. We've gotten some video questions. People are talking about how would you leverage YouTube and Pinterest for small business? It looks like Marty has says video blogs are more easily digestible than written blogs. I would always say this as somebody who spent a lot of time in the YouTube video world. Make sure that you understand that not everybody can watch a video with full sound on. So before you go nuts with like creating this big expensive thing that has all these cool sound effects and all this other stuff, realize that sometimes written and those captions and why that's all important is because, as Jason knows with ads, you can have the greatest ad in the world. And if people are in positions where they cannot consume that with the sound full on, they don't have headphones or they're in the middle of a meeting and they sneak a peek, it's going to be hard for them to consume that unless you're giving them captions or text-based stuff. So that's one thing I'll always say about that. But if you were looking at video on the website, if you're looking at like YouTube and things like that, like what are your suggestions? And then to go off of that, if you have something that really does work, let's say it is a video or a post, people are asking, is it better to create the ad from scratch or boost it? Like those
great
things.
question.
Yeah.
Great question. So let's answer the YouTube thing first. And again, John, I think you're way more of an expert on YouTube than I am. But where could those videos live on your website? Well, again, I go back to have it. I like the idea of it could live in a blog. Like that. Again, what we're trying to do is think about Google and what it wants. We're trying to think about the people and what it wants. We're trying to think about SEO, but we're also trying to think about how do we get people to stay on this dang page. And so
Right.
embedding a video that might detail sort of the content of that blog is not a bad play at all. Because what that is going to do is it's going to keep people on the page. It's going to reinforce what you're talking about, and it's going to drive up your SEO. Now, again, easier said than done, creating a YouTube video.
Right.
Um, but it does really come into play. And a lot of this is going to feed into your paid ad strategy too. If people are watching your content on YouTube and you've got that connected to your Google Ads account, you've got that Google Search Console connected to your Google Ads account, if you've got your analytics connected to you're just feeding Google way more information about who's consuming these videos. And
Yes.
then that gives you the power to get in front of them. So, okay, let's shift to the question on boosted posts. Now, normally, I would say that boosted posts are a way to make Mark Zuckerberg to build his doomsday bunker even bigger. Generally, it's a waste of money. But that said, if you do it right, it's the best way to go. So I know I'm
Mhm.
saying two completely different things. Most of the time, when you try to boost something on Facebook, it's just going to try to give you reach. And it's going to put, it's going to try to give people. I'm not saying Facebook is taking your money. It wants to be able to give you what you're looking for. But when you just boost a post, oftentimes you can't run those sort of advanced conversion based campaigns. And so typically, if you have a really good post, there's one thing that I should say. The second that you boost it, that post is locked. You cannot change it at all. So
Right.
make sure that you have your CTA in there, you have your link to somewhere. But social uh, the best way to utilize social posts and boosting them is actually from your Facebook Ads Manager. You can go back
Mhm.
into the Ads Manager and say, hey, do I want to create this ad or do I want to run this boosted post? When you run it from your ads, you have that ability to add on that call to action and then link them somewhere. But this is a great question because what a boosted post is better at anything is collecting social proof. And so if you have that social proof on there, you have those comments on there, it's going to turn into a really good ad. But if you do it the wrong way, you're going to just throw money into the nether or ether, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
it's not going to
Yeah.
work. But that's what we do on TikTok. We don't run standalone ad for CompanyCam. We don't run standalone ads on TikTok. Everything is originally a native post to the platform, and then
Yeah.
we spark it. That's the same as boosting, and the effectiveness of that is so much greater than just throwing out an ad. Now, let me talk out of the other side of my mouth. Um, if you don't know what those ads are, if you're starting from scratch, not a bad idea to just run ads, see what hits. You can always take this ad, turn it into a post, and then go back and do it all again. So the beauty about sort of running cold ads is you have this opportunity to just cycle through a lot of nonsense that you don't know what the angle is going to hit. But it does help you over time to get that stuff onto your page and then boost it in the right way.
That's a good point about, and I would say this for anything, is if you let it organically gather, like you're talking about, gather some reach, gather comments, start to work, it makes so much more sense to put dollars behind it when it's already achieved that status versus,
Correct.
and to me, even if that wasn't an algorithmic, however you would say that, algorithmic, something like that, even if that had nothing to do with an algorithm, that to me just makes the most sense. We've already proven that it's something that people are wanting to have a conversation about. Now I'll put money behind it. To me, it's a wonderful test case. And back to Jason's original point of how awesome is this? It's all this stuff is free. But before you boost, you can see so much stuff happening from a social perspective without sending any money Mark Zuckerberg's
Yeah.
way.
Now, I will
Um,
say, let me say one final note on
yeah,
this.
yeah,
There's a big difference between just general marketing and direct response. With direct response, we're trying to get somebody to do that thing. And so if this is sort of an introductory sort of video that's educational and it's not really geared towards people booking with you or people signing up, don't be surprised if people don't book and people don't sign up. So, direct response is being able to put out content and understand the direct result of that. I put this much money in, I'm going to get this much money out. So, yeah, I mean, we can sort of run ads with just educational stuff, but every now and again, it's sort of like the Gary V like jab jab hook or I'm sure something, right? You can put out content, and then hit them with something that sells where they're actually trying to you're trying to get these people to take action. And those ads are going to work better than just you boosting, you know, something here or there. So there has to be
Right.
some, a strategy behind it. So
I'm going to get to some of our last couple questions here. Somebody was asking, I think it was Deborah was saying, does it hurt or help if we're posting or scheduling posts from things like Hootsuite or eClincher? Like, it, is it better to post directly from Meta? Is it better to do things inside the proprietary program versus outside programs that are trying to make, content posting
yeah.
easier and scheduling and all that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I don't know if I have the answer to this, and I'm still sort of in the midst of this myself. I don't
Yeah.
think some platforms you're fine uploading from like Hootsuite or wherever. There are platforms like TikTok where I think it performs much better if it is posted from your phone and specifically from like a US IP,
Mm-hmm.
your IP being like your location. So if you have a virtual assistant that is posting for you, let's say over in the Philippines or something like that on TikTok, that's going to go to the people in the Philippines. That's going to go to people there. So it is a little bit different with some of these platforms, but I think with like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, you're safe, you're fine. But yeah, when it does come to like TikTok or something like that, you're going to run into some issues, and you're way better off just posting that via your phone.
Yeah, I will back up what Jason said. I've had people in different industries have that same question, and they're like, "We've tested it. We can't see anything reasonable," but they always come back to the TikTok thing, saying where we have seen it is people posting organically from their phone versus creating something, dropping it in TikTok that you also ran over here on Instagram. Not to say it's impossible, but they have seen that difference, which is kind of interesting. Somebody asked about uh, things like press releases for SEO. Like, do they help if you grab something contracting related from like Newswire or PR Newswire? Is that something good to do from an SEO standpoint or a website content standpoint? Does it make a difference? Is it kind of like maybe the juice isn't worth the
Yeah.
squeeze to waste time on that?
No, good question. Happy to address that. And I have a question here, John. I want to talk about like retargeting and stuff like that. So we've
Yes,
got we
absolutely.
got time for that, right?
Yes, we do. We'll keep
That'll be
going
your
until they
best money
kick us out of
spent.
here.
So I
Yeah.
want to I want to cover that. But yeah, backlinks are huge, and that is people linking to your website. So that's another major factor in SEO. So if you have sites with authority, meaning they've been around a long time, they get a lot of traffic, and if they link back to you, yes, it's going to do you benefits as far as SEO. There's things like Yext. There's tools out there like that where it's going to take your information and make it the same across all these directories like Yelp and Google My Business and wherever people are searching. The more that you have backlinks coming to your website
Yeah.
and they're all the same, it's only going to do you good. But again, what I want to say is SEO is not like a quick fix. It is a long-term strategy. And so nothing is going to be like, hey, I did this one thing and then boom,
Mhm.
it absolutely worked. It's an investment over time.
Yeah. Let's talk about retargeting. This is the
Yes.
best money spent, according to
Yeah.
Jason. Tell us about it.
So I get a lot of people who ask, like, where should I start advertising online? Now, obviously, I'm a giant fan of Facebook and Instagram to display content to folks. Google is obviously way better with people who have intent and they're actually searching for what they're doing. But the best money that you will most likely, I need to asterisk this, like potentially, I would say normally the best money that you can be spending is retargeting. And this is why I want you to think of retargeting. You have spent your time, you have spent your money, and you have spent energy getting people to your website. Rather than going and spending new money on getting new folks, why don't you just put ads in front of the folks who are already on your website but for some reason didn't check out? We've seen this all online when we've done shopping. You put something into your cart, you didn't buy, and magically you see that on your social feed later. Now, if we were running an e-com store, John, of course we would serve those customers first
Right.
who almost bought but didn't, rather than trying to go find new customers that have never heard about us before. And so retargeting is one of those things where you can spend, I mean, $5 a day. It's not a lot. You can put your ads in front of these people who have been to your website and then just stay in front of them. It's such an easy, I shouldn't say it's easy. Like there's a little bit of a technical lift to it. There's videos all over YouTube, not a hard thing to do. Or even if you have an agency, just make sure that they are running retargeting ads for you because it's going to solidify, and that's where you build the trust. That's where like you're not trying to sell a ton in your retargeting. They're already coming kind of somewhat sold on you. They've already been to your website. But if you can continue to provide them value and just surface these things, and if you have social proofed ads where people have commented on it and are raving about you, put those ads in front of people. And that's going to be some of your best ROI ever spent. And then when you see that success, when you start to see that inside of your analytics, and you know what you're paying to go get one of those forms submitted, that's when you can start spending more money. And that's one of the best things that you can do is that is like the magic bullet of internet marketing is paid ads. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, and it costs you money. It is a pay to play game. But that's why we always start with like analytics and setting up what all of these events are and trying to understand like what are people doing, because then we can provide that information back to Facebook or Google and we can know, okay, I'm spending this amount, but I'm getting this many submits, this many thank you pages. And then if the numbers work, all you have to do is not crank out more content. You just spend more money to make more money.
People are asking if they were going to get started with, they have no idea how to do retargeting. They have
Yeah.
no idea how to add a pixel. They have no idea, how to optimize this system. Where would you say they start? Like Henry was saying, how do we pay for these ads? Like if they were starting from scratch, what would be your, say, maybe ABCs, step 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, starting from scratch, don't hire your buddy to do this for you. I would say that. Um, Again, because you're gonna potentially lose money. And I guarantee 50% of these people have worked in here with an agency. Some of them have probably had success, some of them have probably been burned. And I get that. But the number one way to, or the fastest way to do this, is by getting your Facebook pixel on your website. So your Facebook pixel is, think of it as a cookie. It sort of follows people around online. And so when you have that Facebook pixel on your website, that's going to tell Facebook, hey, these people have this Facebook account. If they hit this website, we can then go put ads back in front of them. And so, what we can do, sort of as a general rule of retargeting, is you create an audience of anybody that's visited my website in the last 30 days. I just want to run ads at them. So, um, there is some nuance to all of this. I'm not going to say it's like super easy to do, and we've got a few minutes, so I can't go through all of these. But you might need a tool like Google Tag Manager. Again, it's free, that connects that pixel to your website. And then, there's plenty of resources out there doing it. But yeah, if you have an agency running ads for you, make sure that they're doing retargeting. If not, you can figure this out, or there's obviously solutions out there as well.
Yeah. This is fantastic. And then we dropped Pixel Help Facebook link. Thanks, Christian, from CompanyCam and Google Tag Manager as well in the chat. For those who missed today, and I do have one more question I want to ask Jason.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, for those who missed it, we will email out everybody who registered a YouTube link tomorrow, and this will be up on YouTube moving forward, so you can stop, pause, rewind, listen to Jason and I laugh and tell jokes like "Don't hire your buddy." So one of the questions that was asked was, what about pricing on a page? Real quick, we only have a couple minutes, but pricing on your page, yay, nay? I know it can get interesting depending on jobs, and it's like, how static do I make this thing? What would you say about putting pricing on the page as a contractor?
I get this from both sides. I understand as a consumer that I want to know, but I think obviously like you're going to sell probably better on a phone, right? Or sell better in a conversation, and that's where you're going to handle objections. So maybe pricing on a page is going to be for the folks who like want to just see, and they're not really that interested anyway. But I do think of getting people to call you is better. What I think is more important than pricing is probably an offer, right? Give them a reason to call you. Give them like an incentive to reach out, whether it's a warranty or $500 off or something like that. Put an offer on there. I think you're going to generate a lot more conversations than just pricing.
Yeah. Well, this is fantastic, Jason. I feel like we could go for like another hour if we had to. Maybe we'll have to do webinar part 2 with Jason and John. Maybe it's a new podcast idea. This has been awesome. Thank you, my friend, so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, we will email out that link to the YouTube the link for the YouTube video of the recording of this. And don't forget, listen to the Good Contractor podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. Jason, thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for the questions. It's been great.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next time.